everyone, this is Dennis from Boulder Sounds. Welcome to the video demo of the Guitarron library. I'm pretty excited about this library for a couple of reasons. Bo Clausen has done a wonderful job of KSP Kontakt scripting for it with a great deal of flexibility. I'll go into that shortly. And this instrument, as far as I know, has never been sampled extensively at all. I know of one library where there's some loops, so this is really one of the most overlooked bass voices in the world of virtual instruments, I believe. It's now July of 2014, so I'm not aware of any other libraries that feature this instrument as of yet. Okay, so let's dive right in. What we see here are two main panels on the front of Kontakt. We have an instrument panel, an effects panel, and on the instrument panel, if you go to the lower right hand corner of Kontakt, you'll see a drop down menu. This is the main page we're on. We also have a settings page. We have an auto slide page, which is a very sophisticated sliding KSP algorithm, which I'll show you about in a little bit. We have a key switch page to customize your key switches. And we have an about page, which is essentially an online manual written right into the Kontakt interface. If I go to the effects panel, you can see my drop-down effects here. We have a compressor, we have a global EQ, we have a chorus, delay, reverb, cabinet simulations, space IR convolution, and again you have access to the about page as well. So now we're back on the instrument panel, and this is the main page. And we recorded the Guitarron with both a microphone and a Kontakt pickup. So if I wanted to turn on the Kontakt pickup, right now the mic is on this default Guitarron NKI. If I turn on the mic pickup, I just click on that button. We'll get to that a little bit later. Here's just the fundamental sound of the Guitarron with just the microphone. It's got this really wonderful, warm, fat sound, and it just can sit in a mix playing a very simple part, and it works very, very well. Another very common feature on the Guitarron in traditional mariachi music is to play it in octaves. So we have an octave button right here, and I can turn on the octave locked button, and then we'll just get automatic octaves. That can also be with a key switch unlocked down here. So if you're playing in real time and you have that button engaged, you can very easily disengage it. So here's some octaves, and then I'll go to single notes. So I've done that with the key switch on the very left bottom red key switch here on your screen. Okay, so I'll take the octaves off. And you see here in this column under microphone, we have the microphone volume level. And below that it says Edit Mic EQ. So if you click on that button, you get this nice EQ section here just for the microphone signal. And then in order to hear the changes, of course, you need to have the mic EQ button turned on. And we have a nice 3-band EQ here. So just to give you an idea, if I bring up the band 2 gain a little bit. If I want to go back to its default setting on the Mac, it's command click. On the PC, it's control click. And notice here, right next to it, it says Save Preset. So I can get various presets of EQ settings and save them in presets 1 through 6. And then I can also save an entire bank. And name the bank descriptively, EQ Guitarron bank 1 or whatever you choose. And then below that you see you can save or load the bank, and you can also set a specific bank as a default bank to load when you load the Guitarron instrument into Kontakt. So now I'm going to close the EQ on the mic signal, and here's with the mic and the pickup both turned on. just want to hear the pickup signal by itself. Little boxier sounding, but an interesting combination with the mic. And you have, you know, all these EQ options on the pickup, just like you did with the microphone. So you can EQ the Kontakt pickup totally independent of the microphone pickup and have contrasting sounds and get a very cool composite sound. And in the Kontakt pickup, of course, you still have the preset menu where you can save your own presets or banks. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to turn the Kontakt pickup off, and I'm going to also turn off the Kontakt pickup. And below that, and here you see scale time. So what that does is it scales the timing of the slides. And I'll get to the auto slide explanation in a little bit. But essentially, if you have a faster piece of music, you need to speed up your slides that you have programmed. You can just turn it counterclockwise and it'll speed it up. So for example, here's the default setting. Here's a 1.5 step slide. Okay, if I need that to be faster, I go counterclockwise. Or if I need it much slower, I can go fully clockwise. So the actual speed of the slide is programmed on a different page, and we have presets and all sorts of options there, and I'll explain that to you in just a moment. And another thing I neglected to mention is here we have a slide display. It says no slide. So if I press my key switch down here in green, the F, you'll notice it goes to a half step up. I go to the next key switch, it says a whole note up. Next key switch is 1.5 steps upward slide to the note you're holding. And then we have a null note here, which is G sharp, and then we go to A, it's a half step down. We go to A sharp, it's a whole step down, and 1.5 steps down. So you have 6 variations there of slide types, and this display just simply shows you which ones you're using. I'll get to the time variation display in a moment. I'll explain that, but just right here in cyan, these are your time key switches, and notice when I press those, it says time variation 1, time variation 2, 3, 4, and so on. And these are presets that you can create of your own with different slide parameters. So now let's go from the main page to the settings page. On the left we have amplitude envelope controls, all your traditional parameters to control the amp envelope, attack, release, decay, sustain, etc. So if you want a bass sound with slightly less attack to it, you can just slow down the attack and you'll have a little softer attack very easily. I won't go any further into that. Next to it we have pitch bend. Okay, and this is pitch bend with the pitch bend going up or the pitch bend going down. Right now it's assigned to 2 whole steps, and you can set those independently. If you link them, they both work as one button. So if I change this to 3 or whatever, you can see they both change. I'll just move it back to 2, turn the link off. Last note off, pitch bend. This is kind of an interesting feature. So if I have 2 notes ringing and I've used the pitch bend wheel, it changes them both. But let's say we want to have 1 note sustaining and 1 note bending. So I have this button engaged. I play 1 note, I'm going to play the 2nd note and then use the pitch bend. It will only bend the 2nd pitch. You see, so you can get some kind of interesting effects that probably you would never be able to do on a Guitarron in the real world. Okay, octave time. These are parameters that affect the octave setting that was on the main page. So right now the timing is at 20 milliseconds, and we have a randomized feature as well, so everything doesn't sound so mechanized and perfect. And we can change these. So if I engage my octave key switch here, Okay, so here's 20 milliseconds. I'll bring it way up to 70. So you can see there's quite a bit of more space between those two octave notes. If I want the randomization to be even more, so there's more well, randomness in the spacing of those notes at 71 milliseconds, you'll have this effect. So you can tell some are tighter than others, some are more off than others. So I'm going to set this back to its default. So let me just demonstrate. This is one of the special things about the Guitarron. I don't know how many bass instruments you can play in octaves and not have the music get muddy very fast, and the Guitarron does this very, very well. One thing, just take a look at the instrument. I didn't mention this in the beginning of the video. Here's the lowest string of the Guitarron where my mouse is, and then we go higher, 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 and then the very last first string of the instrument is actually a low string, so that enables the player to more easily play octaves. So it's kind of almost a reverse banjo effect with the low string down where the first string would be. So getting back to my explanation of how well the octaves work, I'll just show you a little bit of a demo done in Logic with jazz guitar sound and walking bass, and it'll kick into octaves in mariachi style, but you could certainly use this in any kind of music and create some very unusual and interesting sounding bass lines. Okay, so here's the example I wanted to show you of a demo that I did in Logic. You can see here at bar 15, there's a very low note. That's the key switch, which kicks the Guitarron into octaves. And prior to this bass line is being played just one note at a time. But give it a listen. Octaves. And now back to single notes. Pretty cool, huh? And on the settings page as well, we have a LFO column where you can control your vibrato. We have a fade-in parameter and frequency and amount. So what this sounds like, this is just your basic mod wheel control. So that's the default setting. And you know, if we want a great deal more, we'll just use the amount. And I've never heard the Guitarron played with much vibrato, so this is something, with it being a virtual instrument, which will make it something unique that you can do that I think is not too frequently done on the real instrument. And the frequency, of course, is the speed of the LFO. Okay, so now let's move to the auto slide page. So what you see here, first of all, with the slides, we have green key switches down here. And as I engage each key switch, you can see right here, it shows me key switch. The slide is at F0, and it's a half note slide upward. So one thing I could do is just change that by this menu. If I want F0 to be, you know, a whole note up, a whole step up, I could just change it like that, and then you see the drop-down menu above it changes to Save Setup, so I can save that setup or preset or bank or whatever I wish to do. But for now, I'll just go back to the way it was set. So as I go through each key switch, it's reflected here in the display. F#0 is a whole note up, and G0 is 1.5 notes up, and then the descending ones are down here. So I could set these up really in any way I wanted to if I wanted to customize my slide key switches. Now here it says slide times. These are the key switches down here in cyan. And when I press those, you'll notice one becomes highlighted, and it shows me that each key switch has a different time variation assigned to it, and the time variations are defined by this pre-slide parameter and the slide time parameter. You can make your own custom settings and save them and assign them to each one of these key switches. So essentially in this mode, with the slide matrix turned off, I'll show you the slide matrix in a moment, but with this setup you're using 2 key switches as well as playing a note to create a specific slide. The advantage here is you have 36 possible variations. You have a great deal of flexibility. The disadvantage might be maybe you don't want to be dealing with 2 key switches. So if you don't want to do that, you'll turn the slide matrix on, and then that will give you just 6 variations, which are very easy to deal with just from 1 key switch. So we have a lot of flexibility here in terms of sliding. So let me try to demonstrate how this works with the matrix off. What I'll do is I'll hold down the key switch so I get a 1.5 step slide upward. So, and I hold that key switch down, I play an A. Okay, so you can hear the timing of that. That's time variation number 1, and that's shown over here on the slide times. So if I press a key switch, like number 2, and I switch it to time variation number 2, a little different, time variation number 3, and you can see these times are being updated here in this column where it says pre-slide and slide time. There's a different one, that's variation number 4. There's 5, that's a very slow one, and number 6. Okay, so you can program these, and then again you save them as your various time variations, and you can save them as banks, and have a lot of flexibility as far as time goes of the slide. And something I neglected to mention was the pre-slide time is essentially a millisecond setting so that when you press your key, the slide does not happen right away. So you can define that to have a delay to it, which makes it sound quite a bit more natural. Okay, so now I'll turn the slide matrix on. So there's the on button right there. So if you want to simplify your key switches for the slides, this is a way to do it. So you'll notice now when I play my slide key switch over here on the left, it shows I'm on F0, and assigned to it is a half note slide up, and it uses time variation number 1. So I can change that to any of the other time variations that I've programmed. And also notice here in the display, it shows that it's the half note up, and it's using time variation number 1, and it's also telling me what the pre-slide time is, which is 100 milliseconds, or the slide time, which is 150 milliseconds. And as I go through each key switch here, in green, you can see it updates in the display each one. And for example, here's key switch slide number 3. It goes 1.5 steps upward. It uses time variation number 3, and so on. So these are your 6 variations of slides that you can use, and it's very effective for creating variety, so all the slides do not sound the same. These are all KSP generated slides. So there's that slide, and I'll use a different key switch. Same note, totally different slide. That's from above, and that's a very slow slide from above. So that is the slide matrix being turned on. So if you want to simplify things, you can save a few presets the way you like them, and the presets are programmed in there already for you. You may already find what's in there to be all you need. And you'll also notice when you turn the slide matrix back off that these cyan key switches appear again, because that's the other approach with using two sets of key switches. So when you're using the matrix, those disappear because they're basically grouped together here, all in one setting. And the Guitarron, by the way, is a very difficult instrument to slide on. There's really not a lot of room to slide. It's a very small neck. The action on the strings, the distance of the string to the neck is very high. So again, in the world of virtual instruments, we're able to do something that on the real instrument would be quite difficult. Okay, so let's move on to the key switch page. I'll turn the matrix back to off position. And I go to the right-hand lower menu, key switch page. So what we see here is we can move any of these key switches, the green or the octave button or the cyan slide time key switches, to different places on the keyboard if you wish to customize it. So a real simple example. This F down here on the green key, F0, I'm going to click Learn Slide button number 1. And what I'll do is just play a high note, and you can see it's jumped from the F here all the way up to the high C. So you can just move them around to whatever place you like. I'll put it back where it belongs, or where I like it. And the same thing is true for the time key switches. So here we have, the first blue key, time number 1 assignment, time variation. If I want that to be up here on that C, I just hit it and it learns the key. So I'll bring that back to where it belongs. Same thing is true with the octave as well as the harmonics. So you can customize your key switches very easily. It's a very nice feature to have in there. Okay, that's it for the instrument panel. Now I'm going to go to the effects panel. And you'll notice we have, by the way, the effects can be turned on and off from the front main panel, just for quick convenience of auditioning something with an effect on or off. You don't edit from this panel. So you go to the effects panel, and right now we're on the compressor page. The compressor is off. I won't spend a great deal of time on the effects. I think these are things probably you've used quite frequently in music. For example, you can select an effect by just going to the chorus page, for example, and then I hit the chorus button, so the chorus is off right now, and chorus on. Which, by the way, that's just a nice fat setting right there, just with turning the default chorus preset on with the Guitarron. It sounds very nice. Here's some octaves. Okay, and we have the various effects parameters here, and then again you can save presets, you can save banks, you can reset all knobs to their default setting up here. You can save load banks. Just make sure you name them specifically, chorus, Guitarron, so you can find it easily in the future. So chorus, delay, and so on. We also have cabinet simulations here, number of cabinets to choose from, and various parameters to program it with, and the usual menu to save your presets with. And space IRR convolution, impulse responses, and we have a nice list here of very high quality ones to choose from. I'll just leave that as it is. Oh yes, and one effect that is very important, global EQ. So when we click on that, we can turn it on. And what the global EQ does, it's basically a third EQ. So we have an EQ dedicated to the microphone samples. We have an EQ dedicated to the contact pickup samples. And you can EQ those independently, and then those will run through the global EQ if you choose to use it. So if you get a cool sound of a mix between the mic and contact pickup, and then you just need to tweak the overall sound just a little bit, add a little high end to it, or whatever the case may be, this is where you would do that. So for example, if I go back to my main instrument page here, and I'll turn the pickup on. Okay. So I might go to edit the pickup EQ, and I'm going to just choose a different preset, number 3, just kind of randomly. Okay. And then what I could do is I go to my global EQ page. And by the way, right here from the front panel, I can turn the global EQ on or off, as I mentioned before. But let me go to my effects page and the global EQ. And here we have 2 options. We have an advanced EQ button if you want more specific control, or just kind of a generic bass, mid, and high setting. So if I want to bring out a little more treble in this one and roll the bass off. So you can sculpt some different sounds very quickly. So the global EQ is very useful. So here I am back on the main page. One thing I neglected to mention at the beginning of the video is the Guitarron. The lowest note of the standard tuning of the Guitarron is that A right there. So what I did when sampling it is, on the lowest string I tuned it down in half steps and tuned each sampled each half step, you know, with the round robins and the various velocity levels. And I sampled that all the way down to E. So that's the actual last real physical sample. But that E worked just fine, stretching it all the way down to this C. So we've extended the range of the Guitarron in the low end almost an octave. So that gives you a great deal of flexibility, and it really sounds quite good. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, in addition to the default Guitarron instrument that loads when you first load the library, we have supplied 20 preset examples of other Guitarron NKI instruments in Kontakt. So here's the Guitarron Boulder Sounds folder. Open that up. And in the Instruments folder, we have Guitarron example patches. Open that, and there's your 20 patches. My friend Kip Kipper here in Boulder at Coop Studios is an excellent recording engineer, and he's also a bass player. And he contributed about half of these patches. So he really knows how bass instruments should be EQ'd so they sit well in a mix. And Bo Clausen did the majority of the other ones. So I think you'll find it to be a special library. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch and listen to the demo. And best wishes to you from Boulder Sounds. Adios.